Hi, welcome back to the Crafter Studios at the Scottsdale Public Library. This is the part 2 of our Cardboard Loom Weaving program. Last time I showed you how to build a basic cardboard loom. And today I'm going to show you how to set up the loom and we can weave a small coaster just like this too. So get ready and here we go. There's a few terminologies that we need to kind of go over with. So there's warp, which means the thread that goes from top to bottom, and also there are weft. Weft are the yarns that goes across the loom as you weave under and over, under and over. And the other terminology is shed sticks. The shed sticks is used to lift up the yarn, so it's easy for you to pass the yarn, the weft through the warp. Now, to set up a yarn, to set up a loom, the warp needs to, the thread for the yarn for the warp needs to be strong and sturdy, that can withstand all the passing of the weft. So the best yarn for warp is a yarn that made from cotton, like any regular crocheting cotton yarn will do. So this is the one I choose. And to start, you go from either way, the top or bottom doesn't matter. So you leave about 3 to 4 inches tail. And you go through, you pass it through the first notch. And then you wrap the tail around back into the first notch. And then pass it to the second notch. This is just to secure the yarn, and many people like to use masking tape. I prefer to do it this way. So that's how you kind of secure the tail. And now we're ready to set up the loom. So to make sure that you have a good weaving result, the tension on the warp is very important. So I'll wrap the yarn around my finger and pull it, and then pass it through the first notch on the opposite. And then turn it over and pass it through the second notch and pull it, turn it back over again, and again, wrap the yarn around your finger just so you can create a good tension on the warp. So that's how you set up a loom. To know whether you got a good tension, it's almost like the string on the guitar. That shows you that all the yarn, all the warps have the right tension, and the tension should be even. So you just keep going until you finish all the notches. And to make sure, and I also want to make sure is when you finish, there should be even number of warps. Okay, so now after we have string all the warps on the loom, and there's a tail, and you cut it about, again, 3 to 4 inches long. And again, to secure it, you just wind it from the side back to the first notch and do a figure of 8. Go to the next notch and come back to the first notch. And I think that should be enough. And that's how you secure the tails. And there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So there are 14 strings. So that's even number. Okay. Now, this is 1 inch piece that we just cut earlier. it goes to the bottom of the loom. And the reason for that is at the end of the piece, you need to have some string that will long enough for you to tie knots. So this is help you to create some extra strings for tying later, but it also uses as a guide when you do the weaving, so it doesn't kind of push the fabric to the bottom of the loom. So that's a guide. The next one, remember I mentioned this is called shed stick. The shed stick is used to lift certain yarns for you to pass the weft across the loom. So you start from the right and you go under, over, under. Yeah, so if you decide to use those wooden craft stick, it might be a good idea to sand it lightly just to get rid of all the rough edges. So that's how the shed sticks works. So you lift certain yarns. And now we're ready to weave. So I'll take a knitting needle. And since this is a project of a small object, you don't really need a long yarn. And I have all this already cut out, but if you have a ball of yarn, the ideal length will be measured from the fingertip of your thumb to your elbow 4 times. That will be a good length of yarn to work with, so it's not too long and it's not too short. So I have this. This is not exactly that long, but since I already had it cut up, so I'm going to use this yarn just to demonstrate how to start weaving a fabric. To start from the right side, you just lift this shed stick and pass the yarn all the way across. And you want to leave about another 4 inches long of the tail. And you turn it, and then you turn it over and put it through the notch and wrap it through the first notch. Again, just to secure it. Okay, so we did our first passing of the weft. Now we want to go back. Whatever was woven under, then this time when you go back, you want to do the opposite. So this is over, then you want to go under. And this is under, you want to go over. And just kind of an interval, under, over, under, over. And you pull it gently, slowly. And then you want to use your finger to hold the weft together with the first warp and kind of gently pull it, and then use your finger to push the yarn down. That's your first weave. And then again, you lift up the shed stick, you pass this yarn, this weft through it, and then pull it gently and put it down, and press it downward. And then you go under, over. You probably were thinking like, okay, so I have this stick to lift these yarns up. Why can't I do the same with the other sets of yarn when I when I want to travel back. You could do that, and I'll show you. So you pass it back from right to left again. Again, not pull too tight, and press it down, or you can use your finger. And then you can use a short knitting needle and pick up the yarn. Just like you were passing the needle through. And then that will create some space. And you can just pass the weft smoothly. Press down and take it out. And there you go. And we'll go back again. So you see, if you pull it too tight, the first warp will start to be drawn in, and then once that's created, there's no way to go back to correct it. So when you pull the yarn, you have to be very mindful, if that's the way to put it. Okay, and I just lift it, pull it. Okay, so now you see there's a tail, and you can continue with the same color, or if you like, you can use different color. So here's the step I want you to pay attention, is some people like to leave a long tail and then tie the knot with the tail of the next yarn. But that creates a problem because the knot will become visible. So how to hide the tail and secure it the same way, you could do this. So say this is the end of the yarn. You go back to repeat the same under and over weaving pattern by four warps. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So you start from here. So you do the same thing. This is under, so you go under, over, under, and over. And you pull it. And you leave a little tiny tails at the end. And then you can go back, continue. So naturally, if you do it this way, there's a double layer here. But you will see as you keep going that once you pack it down, you really can't see it. It's all buried under all this weft. So you go back again. You pull it gently and press it down with your finger. Take this out and again go back. So these are the repetitions of the motions that you just use to continue weaving. Remember, as you weave, make sure you pack it down from time to time just to make it really tight. And you just keep going. Now, I'm going to show you how to take the yarn off, the fabric of the loom. So So to take the fabric of the loom, you need to untie all those tails that you wrapped around the notches earlier to secure it. And you do one end at a time. Okay. And just take, either two way. You could try to push the thread of the notch, but since I kind of pulled it a little bit tight earlier, I'll just use the scissor to cut it. I just cut the warp out from the bottom. First what you need to do is tighten to finish securing the warp. So to do is you tie a knot with 2 strings, and as you see it's kind of short, so you can use any needles, and you put this in because the knot has to be as close to the bottom as possible, so you put a needle here and then you pull the string. So that will help to tie the knot as close to the fabric as possible. And you just repeat the same thing across it, and then after you finish this, you pull these out and you do the same thing with tying the knot. So here's another pieces that I have finished earlier, and so I tied a knot just the way I just show you, and also these are the leftover tail, and you can just gently pull it a little bit and flush it. See, and this way you don't really see it at all. Front and back, and this one too. And for this 2 tails, since at the edge, what you could do is to weave it back into the fabric. And you can just go from the edge and then slowly wiggle it through. And about 1 inch long should be enough. Let's see if I can push this through. Yeah, okay. And just slowly push, pull, and cut. And you do the same thing on this side. So I'll show you again. And it's better when you're doing this part, you better choose a yarn needle that has a very dull tip. Otherwise, so it won't poke through the yarn. Because once you do that, once that happens, it's going to be difficult to pull the tail through all this space. And you pull it again, and you cut it. Voila! There you go. So there's the tricky part is when as you're weaving, there's a tendency that it will draw in on the loom, and it takes practice. I don't have any tips on how to not to correct that. It just takes practice. So you can see this is the first one I made, and this is the second one, and this gets better, and this is the third one. So as you practice more, you kind of get the hang of how to handle the yarn in the right tension. So once you finish, it will be all straight. The edge will be all straight. So That's how you do the weaving.
Alright, now you have built a cardboard loom and weaved small coasters. I hope you enjoyed today's program, and if you're interested, we have more books about weaving at the Scottsdale Public Library. And if you are watching this video on YouTube, you may notice that the comment function was disabled. So if you would like to leave a comment or give us any feedback, which we definitely wish you would, please go to our Facebook page. And I hope you enjoyed today's program. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.